What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Full 90. It is time today for the Week 24 predictions of the Premier League, some midweek fixtures, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Morty Man, who left his Premier League predictions for the game week that we just had, as well as answering the comment question of the week, which for me was, what was the most memorable game of football you've ever seen in your life? And his answer was the Liverpool 4-0 win over Barcelona. I saw that quite a few times in the comments. It certainly was a very memorable game. So if you want to be featured in the next episode of the Premier League predictions, week 25, then leave your predictions for week 24 down in the comments below and answer me this: who in your opinion is the most underrated player in world football right now? It doesn't have to be the Premier League, but underrated player. So you can't answer like Messi or Mbappe or all these blockbuster players, because they're not underrated. They're some of the most popular and best players in the world. Underrated, under the radar type player, let me know down in the comments. Before we get into week 24, let's take a little look back at week 23. I'm filming this about an hour after the Liverpool-Manchester United game finished, and it was an interesting game to say the least, but we'll get to that eventually. But kicking it off, we had Watford versus Tottenham. I predicted that Watford would be able to get a draw from this one, but I did think that both teams would score. I predicted a 1-1 draw, and it ended in 0-0, so not the worst prediction. A good result nonetheless, I suppose. Arsenal, Sheffield United, I predicted a 2-1 win to Arsenal. It was a 1-1 draw, so again, close, but no cigar. Good old Arsenal. Next up, Brighton v Aston Villa. Again, I predicted a 2-1 win to Brighton, and again, it was another draw. A 1-1 draw between the two teams, so that's 3 draws off the bat. And the draws don't stop there, because the next game I predicted Manchester City and Crystal Palace's game to have 4 goals in it, but I predicted all 4 going the way of Manchester City, and it ended in a 2-2 draw. So finally coming up, we have a correct, perfect score prediction. I changed my mind on the video and went with my gut and predicted Norwich to beat Bournemouth 1-0, and it actually happened. I think it's the second time this season. I think I've correctly predicted a 1-0 scoreline, and it's in back-to-back weeks. First of all, the Everton Brighton 1-0, and now the Norwich Bournemouth 1-0. The next fixture, Southampton Wolves. I was leaning towards possibly a Wolves win, but I decided to sit on the fence because Southampton were on good form and went 1-1, and Wolves won that one emphatically 3-2. West Ham versus Everton. I predicted a 1-0 away win to Everton, and I was close, but it was a 1-1 draw. Burnley v Leicester. I predicted a 2-1 away win to Leicester, and it was a 2-1 win to Burnley. I missed out the Newcastle Chelsea game, but we'll go back. I predicted a 3-1 win to Chelsea. Chelsea had a ton of chances, but lost 1-0 right at the end. And Liverpool Manchester City, in the end, I predicted 3-1 to Liverpool, but have a little look at what I initially said in last week's video. Initially, I looked at this, I was like, right, 2-0. It just is going to be 2-0. I should have just stopped there. Why did I have to overthink it? So yes, in the end, I predicted Liverpool to win by 2 goals. I thought they'd do that, but 3-1, and it ended in the 2-0 that I initially thought it was just by looking at the fixture. So not a bad week, but it could have been better, and I'm hoping it to be better this time round in week 24. And kicking it off, we have Aston Villa up against Watford. Villa now in the relegation zone. Watford 1 place ahead of them in 17th. And I tell you what, Watford are looking good. Villa are looking not as good, and I'm going to go for a Watford win. You can go back on the channel. I've been saying it week after week after week. Even when Watford were rock bottom with 9 points, I said they're not going to get relegated. I stand by it. They're not going to. Watford breezed past Villa and beat them 3-0 previously. I'm going to go for a closer game this time, though. Still 3 goals, 2-1 to Watford. The next game is struggling Bournemouth, who look like a candidate for relegation, it has to be said. And they take on Brighton. And I think in previous seasons, maybe this would be like maybe a 1-1, a 2-1 to Brighton possibly, a 2-1 to Bournemouth possibly, because Bournemouth going forward in previous years have been better than they have been this year, but they haven't scored really in a long time. They've gone 4 game weeks in the Premier League without scoring, and their last goal came against Arsenal in week 19 on Boxing Day when they drew 1-1. So it's been nearly a month since they've scored a goal in the Premier League. Brighton aren't in the best of form right now, but I think they should have just enough to nick a win from Bournemouth. This is going to be a close game. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to Brighton in this one. The next game, Crystal Palace up against Southampton. Crystal Palace doing what Palace do against Manchester City, it seems, and spoiling Pep Guardiola's birthday at the Etihad, claiming a late 2-2 draw thanks to that own goal in the 90th minute. Southampton missing out on any points against a rampant Wolves side. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw between these two teams. I think maybe in days gone by, this would be a 1-0 win to Crystal Palace, but Southampton are looking pretty decent. And I think it's likely they will score a goal, but at the same time, Roy Hodgson does have them quite well organised over at Crystal Palace, and I don't see them leaking too many goals against Southampton here. The next game, Everton up against Newcastle. Newcastle, absolute scenes, very much on the back foot for the majority of the game, and then nicking a late win against Chelsea. You love to see it, especially when your dad is a Chelsea fan, myself basically. And Everton, they drew 1-1 with West Ham. I haven't seen any highlights or anything of that game. I don't really know how that went, but they drew 1-1 away from home nonetheless. It's not too bad, given that West Ham, they have rejuvenated slightly under David Moyes. I'm going to go for Everton to return to winning ways here at Goodison Park. Newcastle looking very, very good at home at St James's Park. Everton looking very, very good, or much better at home at Goodison Park. Given that it's at home for Everton, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to the Toffees in this fixture. The next one is Sheffield United up against Manchester City. Sheffield United still very much in the top half of the table, and Man City returned to second place, but for nothing it seems, because Liverpool have run away with the title, and it looks like it's going to be theirs very, very soon. I'm going to go for a Manchester City win here. I think given that they drew to Crystal Palace, it will really encourage them to just win this game. Sheffield United got a good result against Arsenal, it has to be said, but I think Man City are the type of team, if they drop points once, they're not going to want to do it back to back, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 away win to Manchester City. I know Sheffield United traditionally have a fairly solid defence, they don't leak too many goals, but I think Man City, for some reason, I just think they're going to do it this time around. The next game, I would say this is probably my game of the week, especially as an Arsenal fan. There's been some crazy fixtures between the two teams. Chelsea versus Arsenal. And Arsenal, I think the reason I'm going for this result is partly because then if Arsenal do draw a win, they get something, and my prediction is wrong. But then if Chelsea do win, at least my prediction's right. But also the fact that Aubameyang is out, I think that's why we drew against Sheffield United. We lacked that cutting edge. So I'm going to go for a 3-2 win to Chelsea. Chelsea need to bounce back. Their games have been fairly low scoring lately, by all things considered, and Arsenal games have been fairly low scoring lately as well. I think the two are going to clash and just create the opposite and have a high scoring game where Chelsea actually take their chances. Arsenal get some chances because they are a decent team, even though Aubameyang's not in there, but I think Chelsea ultimately at home will be able to push Arsenal all the way and get a 3-2 win. But I'm hoping Arsenal can get something out of this game. The next fixture is Leicester up against West Ham. This was quite a tough one to predict. I was leaning on potentially a draw. Leicester dipping slightly in form because of their electric form earlier on in the season. They have got quite a comfortable position in the league table, still very much in the top four and in third place, especially with Chelsea dropping points against Newcastle, Man United losing to Liverpool. Leicester haven't really lost any sort of positioning in the top four, to be honest. And West Ham, they drew with Everton, which is a decent result, but I think at the King Power Stadium, Leicester will finally be able to return to winning ways, but it's going to be close, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to the Foxes. Coming up next, we have Tottenham up against Norwich. Now, Tottenham unable to score against Watford. I think it was 10 millimetres away, the ball going over the line in the 93rd minute against Watford to give them a win. I think Watford did have a penalty that Gazzaniga did save, so I think that game should have ended 1-1, really. I think 1-1 would have been fair, but 0-0 nonetheless. I'm going to go for a simple enough Tottenham win here, but nothing too explosive. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win here against the Norwich side that are still struggling in the league despite their win over Bournemouth, which was with a penalty, I believe. But I think Tottenham will be able to get the win here. If they can't get a win here, well then it's a nightmare for them, really. So the next game coming up after that is Manchester United up against Burnley. Burnley coming from behind to beat Leicester 2-1 at Turf Moor, and Manchester United finally coming into the game against Liverpool in the last 20-15 minutes, but unable, they lacked that quality, that finishing product. Anthony Martial had a couple of chances in the Liverpool game and he was unable to put one away, and ultimately they conceded the second goal on the counter-attack. I think Manchester United, because it's Burnley, I think they're going to beat them, just like I predicted Man United to beat Burnley 1-0 away from home previously, and they were winning 1-0 right up until the last minute when they countered because Burnley were all the way up the field. They won 2-0. I'm going to go for the same prediction, low scoring, close game. Burnley will keep it tight. Manchester United, as they're at Old Trafford against Burnley, and unlike being at Anfield against Liverpool, they're going to be more on the front foot, and I think Burnley are going to shut up shop. Man United will get the goal, and I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to Manchester United. Now the next game is Wolves up against Liverpool, and for some reason I'm going to go for an upset, a shock result, if you will. I'm not going to say Wolves are going to win at Molineux, but I think when Wolves played against Liverpool, Liverpool had a bad day the last time they played. They managed to... My alarm's going off. They managed to win the game in the end, I believe, but I think Wolves could have got something out of that game. They played a slightly weakened team. I don't really know why they did that, but I think Wolves also played very well against Liverpool. They dealt with them quite well. And although they did beat Manchester United 2-0 today, Liverpool did kind of miss a few chances up top. Salah wasn't really in the game until the very end. I know when you look back on the game, you look at the highlights, the pictures of the celebrations, it looks like Salah had a great game. He didn't have a great game at all. Firmino didn't really do a lot. Mane didn't really do a lot. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw between Wolves and Liverpool here. I think Wolves are going to have another result where they take points off the top 6, and this time the big old number 1. I mean, Liverpool could win this one, obviously. It's not going to be a surprise to anyone if they do, given their form, but I don't know. I see them. I just feel like they're going to get a draw, so I thought, you know what? Just go with your gut. Be different, because most people are going to predict Liverpool to win, I'd imagine. So let's be different and try and get a 1-up on everyone else. 1-1 draw. So that is going to do it for this video, the Week 24 predictions. If you did enjoy it, be sure to leave a like on it. The support on the videos lately has been absolutely phenomenal. I really, really do appreciate it. Leave your predictions down below for Week 25 and answer as well who is the most underrated player, in your opinion, in world football. But yes, that is going to do it from me, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.